Welcome to Nasdaq TradeTalks. I'm Jill Malandrino, global markets reporter at Nasdaq. Joining me for the segment, we have Paul Dunford, co-founder of GreenCheck Verified, to discuss how the Safe Banking Act affects the emerging and rapidly evolving cannabis environment. It is great to have you with us. Welcome back to Trade Talks, and catch up our viewers on where the Safe Banking Act currently stands.
Well, the Safe Banking Act just celebrated kind of a sad anniversary. It's been 10 years since it's been there on the floor of Congress for consideration. It's come up and it's passed the House in many different iterations over the years. Now it's in the Senate. We had a very significant moment this year where there was a hearing in front of the Senate Banking Committee, which is the one thing that hadn't really happened before. It had had a lot of success in the House, had never made it out of the committee in the Senate. So having a hearing was a really significant movement forward. So we hope to see that continue to move to a floor vote.
Paul, how does this legislation affect the emerging and rapidly evolving cannabis market?
It does a couple of things. First of all, it puts on paper what's been done in practice since FinCEN issued guidance in 2014 called BSA expectations regarding marijuana-related businesses. So since 2014, financial institutions have used that guidance to build strong compliant programs that meet examiner expectations. But still, there is not that official, yes, you can do it, that some financial institutions and financial services providers, potentially like credit card companies, are waiting for. So it takes what's happening today, it strengthens it for the people who are currently banking, and it provides consistency to allow other people to enter into cannabis banking without feeling like they're navigating unfamiliar waters.
What economic implications does a failure to pass this act hold for cannabis-related businesses nationwide?
We tend to think in really big terms, but in very small terms, the Safe Banking Act is something that allows people who work in cannabis to have normal lives. You know, we talk a lot about the fact that it's still a really cash-based business, and that brings in certain threats and risks themselves. But what the Safe Banking Act does is it also means that people cannot be discriminated against because they're involved in the cannabis industry. They can't be denied federal home loans. They can't be denied access to insurance. So in order for the industry to grow just on a person level, the Safe Banking Act is really, really important. So many normal things are denied folks in cannabis just because of that guilt by association with the industry.
What do you suppose has been the delay in scheduling a Senate Banking Committee hearing on the Safe Banking Act?
It's a really interesting question, and all of us wish we knew. All of us wish we had the magic thing that can help push it forward. But part of it is that it's lost one of its major sponsors. You know, we had a couple of folks in the House who are really pushing for it. And so it's had success in the House, but it's not really had an owner in the Senate. And we had some pushback early on from Senators Booker and Schumer saying, you know, we're not here to do something for banks. We want to do something that is more about restorative justice. These two things are not mutually exclusive. For there to be any kind of social equity in cannabis, there has to be social equity in terms of access to capital. So this is not about making big banks richer, but I think there was a little bit of that misunderstanding at the beginning, which, you know, potentially made it less attractive to some folks. But it really is about supporting the industry that we have and making sure that, you know, it's allowed to grow in the way that it naturally would.
Why is it not more of a legislative priority for lawmakers then?
I think it's perhaps, in a weird way, I think it's a little less controversial than it could be. And so if someone is out there looking to make a name for themselves with some piece of legislation, I think it's weirdly non-controversial. And so it's not necessarily something that someone's going to take up like as their banner to say, this is how I'm going to define my tenure here in the Senate. I honestly think that's part of it.
Yeah, that's a good point that you bring up there. What does the future hold for GreenCheck Verified? Anything else that we should know?
There's a pre-legalization and a post-legalization period that we're looking at. Pre-legalization, we are going to have this movement where we break these silos of individual states into what's called, you know, interstate commerce. So the ability of folks, you know, we've heard about oversupply in California, for instance. Wouldn't it be great if that could be sold in a market that's perhaps not got as much supply? Maybe that can help drive down price. But logistically, every state, territory, and tribal nation has its own rules. GreenCheck, because we're really focused on making sure that financial institutions have access to those rules, we are really the glue that can help keep those programs together. This understanding that something sold in this state can be legally sold in this state based on different regulations. Post-legalization, marijuana and cannabis in general is never going to be just like, go nuts. It's not going to be willy-nilly. It's always going to be highly regulated, like tobacco or alcohol. So there's always going to be a need for financial institutions to have visibility into what's happening. We're also building a marketplace because there are some actors in this industry that aren't necessarily working for the long term. So if you're a cannabis business, you want to know, where can I get insurance that's not going to go away? Where can I get cash transportation services that aren't going to go away? Electronic payments. So that's also something that we're extending to our cannabis businesses on the platform. We have about 6,800 of them so that they have access to all the financial services they need, not just a depository account.
Yeah, I don't think people realize how many companies are within the ecosystem. When you said that 6,800 number, that was surprising to me.
And that is just cannabis touching businesses. So then you have businesses like us. We don't touch cannabis, but we also get a little bit of that guilt by association sometimes. Folks who are plumbers, accountants, the people who make packaging. Cannabis is huge. It's not just the businesses that touch the plant.
Paul, we appreciate the insight. Thanks for joining us on Trade Talks. I'm Jill Malandrino, Global Markets Reporter at Nasdaq.
Thank you so much. Have a great day.